District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Judge Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, on Facebook. It says, quote, "Today with my daughter Erin by my side, I took and signed my oath of office to serve as your District Attorney. It has been the greatest privilege to serve Monroe County as the District Attorney. I'm absolutely honored to continue in this role for the next 4 years. What would you think if Erin Doorley was in jail one time when a prosecutor from the Monroe County District Attorney's Office or any District Attorney's Office in the United States of America didn't talk? What would you, Sandra Doorley, think if your daughter, Erin Doorley, was in jail 6 times and a prosecutor from the Monroe County District Attorney's Office didn't talk? Because that's what's happened to me. And do the lives of others matter? And that's not a rhetorical question. The answer for you, Sandra Doorley, is no. That's why you had to form a conviction integrity unit. I'll be contacting you in the next 2 weeks about what this contraption does or does not do. Because I think it's just your bankrupt public relations, you pathetic diva. So there you are with Erin Doorley. And Erin Doorley, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, can walk to that parking lot next to where I used to live at 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield. I do not know if you can see it given the glare. That's it. And what would you think, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, if Erin Doorley lived right next to this parking lot and she went outside one day to tell a man on his tractor from Broccolo Tree and Lawn Care that nobody owns that land, and then walked back into where Erin Doorley lived? Would you, Sandra Doorley, think that that's a crime that your daughter Erin Doorley committed? Because that's not a crime. Would you, Sandra Doorley, think that that's criminal attempt second? Because that's not criminal attempt second, hypothetically. For Erin Doorley to walk outside, stand right here, next to 26 Sanders Farm Drive, which you can see from Pemberton Road, driving toward Wegmans, and tell a man on his tractor, in this case Steve Desmond, of Broccolo Tree and Lawn Care, nobody owns that land. Why can't Erin Doorley walk to that parking lot without a warrant for her arrest? Yet if I left where I live here in the city of Rochester and walked to that parking lot, I'd be arrested. That's because of $67,000 Shannon Meyer of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, who you, Todd Baxter, haven't fired, right? I'm going to contact her directly and copy you. I'm going to talk to you about this freak and the way she called me in our conversation on the phone for 30 plus minutes, and the way this freak talks. When I use a word like freak to describe a human being, I'm going to detail for you why she's a freak and why you employ freaks. You're comfortable around freaks and you embrace freaks, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, because you're a freak. So, now I'm using the Freedom of Information Law. There are 50 in here. I'm going to read every single one for however long this YouTube lasts. And sometimes YouTube, a Google product, has a mind of its own, and it will click off, or it'll do odd things where suddenly you won't see me anymore, and I'll have to start over again, or I'll just post it online because I got to the point where I demanded information. When I ask something in the form of a question, it's Freedom of Information Law. When it's language in the form of a question, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you in the form of a question to send me this information, which is the names of my prosecutor's silence. So I'm going to read this Freedom of Information Law here, but the reason why I cite that is on my Gmail, which is cchichester4 at Gmail. And when you're thinking at that repulsive shack at 47 South Fifth Street, the District Attorney's Office, how do we get him in handcuffs and cock the charge for him and contact him at that Gmail to tell him we want to get him in front of one corrupt judge where a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court, where there's no jury of 12, where there's no witness testimony against me to deliver me to jail for an indefinite period, where I'm not told how long I'm going to be in jail. Every single time I'm in jail, I'm not told how long I'm going to be there, including when Paul C. Metz delivered me to Livingston County Jail in Geneseo. And then Regina Harper of the Public Defender's Office says to me, quote, "The judge is holding you," end quote. How is that explained to Attorney General Merrick Garland, Paul C. Metz? This is the corruption of this $28,000 skinhead widow. She doesn't think she has to explain anything. Same thing with Alex Renzi on New York State Supreme Court and James Finelli Jr., John P. Lanza Jr., before Paul C. Metzler. These judges are drenched in corruption because they know there's no accountability only at the ballot box. And Alex Renzi has been in there since 2009 with his 24% of the vote. Duke of New York, #1, Alex Renzi, has been there for 13 eternal years, where he no longer can function. I said to him in New York State Supreme Court, "Are you an alcoholic, Alex?" Because at that Magistrates Association event, he looked like he was drinking and he looked like he was having a good time, and it was extremely alarming. I don't know if he was just having a good time for one night or he has some significant problems with an addiction. But I'm trying to enrage him when I say that. I don't care if he's an alcoholic or if he's sober and he lives a good life. I'm trying to enrage him, which is what I do now. If I'm back in court, I'll say the same thing to him or some other corrupt act you want to get me in front of to try to enrage this person. I have no fear, and I'm not trying to be dramatic when I go into court, which used to be the case for me. There was one time I was in Penfield Town Court. I'm not exaggerating. My knees were quivering a little bit. I was in such fear about going to jail. This is what you're doing to innocent citizens, where you could just place me in front of Paul C. Metzler, John P. Lomenzo Jr. for Paul C. Metzler, and deliver me to jail without prosecutor talking in court. So when I contact the Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins, I will urge each to pass legislation to prevent one judge from determining guilt or innocence, because that will absolutely guarantee, and it has for me, innocent citizens are in jail. So here is your reply to me, where I'm sending you this document, and then I'm going to read again. This is dated this December 12th, 2022. And this is your reply to me, where it's not a reply from the district attorney's office or sheriff's office. This is coming from the Monroe County Department of Communications. Why is it that I'm contacting you where you're signing for this? Well, I'm demanding, for example, the names of my prosecutors and everything else in here, such as if you set of employment-related discrimination lawsuits under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And then you're contacting the Monroe County Department of Communications. They contact me, and this is what it says. Your request for documents under the Freedom of Information Law has been received by the Monroe County Department of Communications. I did not contact you pathetic diva, Sandra Doorley, you repulsive skinhead, Todd K. Baxter, Paul C. Metzler, and James Riley Jr. in Penfield Town Court, Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court, the Monroe County Department of Communications. I contacted you. And I've contacted you over and over and over using this, which I read. It's the card that comes back to me. I'm going to show you that again. What I'm going to show you again is part of the receipt. Over and over and over. So you sign for my documentations under the Freedom of Information Law. And then I get this here from the Monroe County Department of Communication, where if I could scroll it, it's one after the other here. Why is that? There were 4 emails that arrived. The first one arrived today at 15:43, which is 3:43. And then I got another one at 16:58, which is 4:58. And then another one at 16:58. So I got too many emails at one time, too many emails at another time at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Well, you're not responding. Well, I'm demanding information from you. This email here from the Monroe County, where it says FOIL number 22-3428, named Christopher Chichester, requested DA expenditures. Oh, is that what you call it? DA expenditures. I'm demanding, if you're spending taxpayer dollars because your employees are violating state and federal law, what's commonly called sexual harassment, which I may define or may not define, but I've defined it over and over and over and told you what it was. DA expenditures. The DA expenditure I will demand, again, is your salaries in 6-month periods. I haven't written that FOIL yet because I want to see in the last 4 years how you delivered raises. And the way I do that is I look at the payroll in 6-month periods, and I command the names, and then I see how you delivered raises. This is where there's no accountability for you. My salary when I was a public employee in Albany was in the Albany Times-Union and Newsday and other media. And it was online when I was a United States Senate, United States House employee in Washington, D.C. I worked there for 5 years. So I'm demanding information from you, and this is this ridiculous email where you're not contacting me. You're contacting the Monroe County Department of Communications. And there's another here. It says requested MCSO employee records. Yeah, that's right. MCSO employee records. Kathleen Miller, have you ever been sexually harassed at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Do you know another Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee that's been sexually harassed? That's what I'm demanding, an employee record where you've had to settle a lawsuit because you're being sued because your employees act like animals, Todd Baxter. So what would you think, Sandra Doorley, if your daughter Erin here went to a gym and another female stood over Erin and punched out violently and Erin's head snapped back, and then Erin went out to a vehicle and $79,000 Andrew Reale arrived, and Andrew Reale's talking to a woman that just attacked her daughter Erin. And then Andrew Reale tells this woman who just attacked her daughter Erin at a gym the 7 words to say to Erin as Erin's sitting in the back seat of Andrew Reale's police vehicle. And those 7 words are, I want to press charges against you. And that's how your daughter Erin's charged with harassment second. And that's how your daughter Erin's going to be in Monroe County Jail. Now, of course, that didn't happen. But that's what happened to me. Do the lives of others matter? The answer is no. So, now what I'm going to read, where I've showed you a stack of cards you received via UPS. What I'm going to read, you received on December 5th. It says ship date is December 5th. So received it within 48 hours. That was on December 5th. What I'm going to read, you received UPS on November 29th. What I'm going to read, you received via UPS on October 31st. What I'm going to read, you received via UPS on October 17th. And what I'm going to read, you received via UPS on October 3rd. I'm not only contacting you to demand information, I have to demand information about myself because of my illegal eviction by my psychopath landlords, Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano, where Giuseppe Spano's son is now dead. This is a card I had to fill out. New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Vital Records Certification, P.O. Box 2602, Albany, New York. Because I no longer have a birth certificate. Because every single thing I own is gone because of my illegal eviction. I'm evicted because of you, Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley, and you, Paul C. Messer, and you, James Renzi Jr., and you, Alex Renzi. Well, I no longer have a birth certificate. And I'm buying things that I used to own to remind me of my life. And I'm not a narcissist. If I show something on here like I'm about to, it's because it's something I once owned that I no longer own because my ex-girlfriend is right in the middle of a criminal act where she took everything I owned out of my residence and brought it to a storage locker in Webster. I get out of Livingston County Jail. I don't know I'm locked out. The door's locked. I walked to Harris Whalen Park in Penfield, and I slept in the park for 3 weeks. I'm sleeping on this bench next to a baseball field, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Wild animals are around me, strangers are around me. I woke up one night and there was a man right in front of me. I thought there was going to be a violent confrontation when I'm looking at him. I now know, as ridiculous as it may sound, how to sleep with having awareness of what's around you, which you can do, as ridiculous as that sounds. Because I would wake up whenever I hear a sound. Because I'm sleeping in a park because I was locked out. And it takes a court order to lock a citizen out. There's no court order for me. My psychopath landlord, Giuseppe Spano, Antonino Spano, think just because I don't have a lease, they can lock me out, which is not the law in the state of New York. I'll wear a beret from time to time. That was in my storage locker. That's gone. I bought a beret because I used to wear one. I had a collection of Brooklyn Dodgers hats because my mother and father from Brooklyn. I bought a Brooklyn Dodger hat. Just think about my mother and father. So, this is what you've done to me, and what you've done to me is destroy my life. Now, today's December 12th. Here it is right here. I'm going to get to the freak show of Rochester, New York, in the post office. So, this says here, large envelope. These are the addresses for you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, you, Paul C. Metzer, 1985 Bad Road in that disgusting little room you think is a courtroom. For you, James P. Mully Jr., 1985 Bad Road in that disgusting little room you think is a courtroom. And I sent this same thing to Mark Phillips and Regina Harper, Public Defender's Office. Well, when you go to the post office on East Main Street, and I went today with this envelope, and this envelope says Alex Renzi, 99 Exchange, Rochester, New York. Well, they're typing 99 Exchange in there for New York State Supreme Court, and for some reason, it will not deliver this envelope. And I don't know, because this has been delivered to him previously, the exact envelope with the address here, Alex Renzi, 9 out of change. But this envelope that I'm holding up, the reason why I'm showing is you will see this tomorrow, where you will sign for it. I'm not just sending it to you. There are ways where you can guarantee, at least I hope that's the right word, that a parcel or envelope arrives where you track it. And then there's a way to do it that you're going to receive it tomorrow where you sign for it like you've done previously. So what's coming to you, you're going to sign for tomorrow. What's coming to you, I'm going to read here again. And you're going to refuse to comply with every one. And then when I go to UPS, I'm going to state this, 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 1460. When I go to this UPS box, there's going to be documentation in there where you're compelling me to be in a courtroom so you can deposit me in front of one corrupt judge to declare me guilty where a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court, and there I'm going to be in jail again. And then when I'm released, I'm going to come back here, demand the same information again. I'm going to tell you I told you so that this was going to happen to me. Because you're psychopaths at that district attorney's office. Because you're psychopaths at that sheriff's office. This bald-headed widow that's paid $28,000 policy measures, destroying lives in there every single time that revolting room is in session, and you allow her to do it, Todd, Baxter, and Sandra Doorley. Why? Because you're corrupt, because you're psychopaths. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter allot compensatory time to employees that have work time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, where the Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee is paid? When I worked in Albany for Senate Majority Leader Ralph Reno for 4 years, this is a long time ago. I began that job. I was only 26 years old. Compensatory time is you work your 40-hour work week. When the 41st hour begins, your compensatory time for that week accumulates. So if I worked a 60-hour week, which I would frequently do, especially during the legislative session, which is in session from January until June 30th. It begins the day of the state, that would usually is the first week in January, and then it would end on June 30th. Sometimes, if they couldn't agree on a budget, it would go until the end of July. If you remember those stories a long time ago about how the budget was eternally late, perpetually late, I should say. So the reason why I'm demanding this is because with my experience with compensatory time, do you have compensatory time, as I just stated it, at the sheriff's office? And do you allow your employees to take compensatory time and be paid? Because what I had done and other legislative staffers would do is the legislative session ends, and in an election year, I'd go work on a campaign where I would be paid my state salary, which is I'm paid that state salary throughout the year, no matter what. And then I have a campaign paycheck, which I'm also collecting. This is entirely legal. So, do you, Todd Baxter, have compensatory time at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office where your employee works a 41st hour and then the hours accumulate beyond that 41st hour, and then the employee can take that time off and still be paid? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. Does District Attorney Sandra Doorley allot compensatory time to employees that have work time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, where the Monroe County District Attorney's Office employee is paid? Does this need further clarification for you, Sandra Doorley? Your health is in radical decline. And how is your health? I'll contact you about your health. I do not know if you go into the office for the standard 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday, but your employees know the answer. If you're asked by this ridiculous media that doesn't hold you or anybody accountable in Monroe County, do you go into the office and do work the standard 40-hour work week? What's your answer? I don't know the answer, and I have to restrain myself from the speculation as I believe I know the answer, but since I don't know the answer, I'm not going to state it. You answer me. What's it going to look like to the people of the state of New York or Monroe County, or more importantly, the Department of Justice, if you're not even going into the office? If you're not even going into the office, if in fact that's true, that's a reason why you need this ludicrous, absurd conviction integrity unit where innocent citizens are in jail when your prosecutors don't talk to court. Personal financial disclosure of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. This could possibly remove you from office, depending on what your finances are. This is as simple and basic and general as it gets. I'm going to find the part of New York State or federal law or both where I'm going to cite it and tell you to send me your financial disclosure. Financial disclosures are the ones I have looked at as I've been a public employee in Albany and Washington, D.C. for my respective bosses. It's just a range. And I cannot recall if you have to cite if you own a particular stock or bond, like if you own Microsoft or General Electric or Home Depot, which I used to own. If you have to cite on a financial disclosure if you own a certain stock from a company in the United States of America, I don't know, but you know. Do you have financial disclosure, Todd Baxter? Send it to me. If the answer is yes, then this is good enough to compel you to send it to me. Where? Where should you send your financial disclosure, which is going to arrive tomorrow? Where should you send it? To 620 Park Avenue, PNB 361, Rochester, 14604. And include the arrest warrant in there from me, since I'm demanding this from you. Freedom of Information Law. The personal financial disclosure of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. I believe that a non-elected attorney has to provide either bar association or some other regulatory power with information about that attorney's finances because of the corruption of the bar, especially in New York. But I don't know. I'm guessing about that. This could not be any clearer about what I'm demanding of you. And you know what I'm demanding of you. And I believe when you read this language, you will think, Sandra Doorley, I don't have to comply with this because he's not citing the part of state or federal law that he needs to cite for me to comply. And that's why you're corrupt. Now here he is, the Duke of New York, A#1, waiting in New York State Supreme Court for me, Alex Renzi. The personal financial disclosure of supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex R. Renzi. I believe he's never been asked this ever, and he's been in there since 2009. Mr. 24%. And I believe that he'll be in a rage when he sees this. Who's a citizen to demand accountability of me, even though he's not going to be thinking about that word accountability? I want to see his finances. He'll think I'm a judge. I'm on his court. I don't have to provide a goddamn thing to this citizen, which is what the next two on Penfield Town Court, the $28,000 bald-headed widow and a $34,000 hack, also going to conclude. Personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court, Judge Paul C. Metzler. I'm going to get to the list of defendants, too, and you're going to refuse to comply with that. Where's your money, the widow Metzler? Do you have conflicts of interest with defendants in Penfield Town Court? Did you notice there's no jury box for a jury of 12, Paul C. Metzler? Did you notice there's no witness stand for witness testimony, Paul C. Metzler? Did you notice that there's no table for a prosecutor to sit? Do you notice there's no table for a defense attorney defendant to sit? How are you in a courtroom? Do you think you're in a courtroom? Please tell Merrick Garland you think you're in a courtroom in Penfield Town Court. Freedom of Information Law, the personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court Judge James McMillan Jr. I'm going to write to you in detail about Jermaine Benman, this violent thug that snaps my head back, and then I get a subpoena to go into Penfield Town Court. I sit down. Your employee immediately came to me, James McMillan Jr., because the deal between you, James McMillan Jr., Jessica Wagner of the District Attorney's Office, to let this violent thug and criminal, Jermaine L. Benman, who snaps my head back in gym, go free. My understanding is Jessica Wagner is not employed at the District Attorney's Office. I don't know why, but that's my understanding, because she's not listed on all the documents on the website. I do not see the name Jessica Wagner. I'll write to you, Sandra Doorley, Barry Douglas, at the District Attorney's Office. Is Jessica Wagner employed? Your employee, Jessica Wagner, at the District Attorney's Office, is functioning as a defense attorney, a public defender for Jermaine Benman, who violently attacks me, which I said previously on YouTube. I didn't write into her office. I'm going to go into more detail about that. And she should be disbarred. Assistant District Attorney, which is what she is, protecting this violent thug that attacks me. I've been banning this now repeatedly. Freedom of Information Law, the internal disciplinary records of documentation for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, disciplined employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. I go to Gold's Gym in Fairport. I'm walking to the gym. I arrive at the pharmacy entrance to Wegmans. 5 Monroe County Sheriff Office vehicles converge upon me. One of your fellow psychopaths, Todd Baxter, exited his vehicle, ran at me, knocked me down. My head slammed down on the concrete pavement. And then, as I'm laying motionless with my head on the concrete pavement, another psychopath kneels on me and says, "Don't move, Chris." This is the 1984 that you're psychopaths. And why I use words like psychopaths? I'm violently attacked. There's nowhere I'm going. I'm surrounded by 10 of your employees. My head slams down on the pavement, on the concrete. "Don't move, Chris." And the witness to this is your female employee with the Marine-style haircut and tattoos. And I subsequently saw her and told her she saw this violent attack. Todd Baxter, I'm going to get to the Freedom of Information Law. I'm demanding that you assign an arresting officer to an arrest for the accountability of facts and circumstances, as I've just explained. Because if you have something happen to a citizen of Monroe County like me, when your employees are committing violent crimes upon that citizen, well, then you can have your Monroe County Sheriff Office employee be forced to answer what happened during that arrest. And you want to shield your employees with anonymity to protect them when they commit violent crimes on citizens and innocent citizens. Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary record documentation for employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley has reprimanded, disciplined, and terminated from employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Should you fire an assistant district attorney who doesn't talk in court as that defendant is delivered to jail? The answer is yes. The answer from you, Sandra Doorley, is indifference. The answer from you, Sandra Doorley, is silence. The answer from you, Sandra Doorley, is you don't care. You don't give a damn. It doesn't matter. That's why you have to have a conviction integrity unit. I will pursue the disbarment of every single one of these prosecutors if, in fact, I have the names, and you're refusing to disclose the names to me. Regina Harper, the Monroe County Public Defender, said to me, quote, "The prosecutor's not backing down. This is the 5'2", 3-pea soup boy who has one of my concocted charges, one of my pieces of fiction before Paul C. Metzler." I walked up to him in Penfield Town Court, got as close to him as possible. He stood straight ahead. I said, "You're going to stand there in silence? You're not going to say anything?" And that's exactly what he did, and I'm sent to jail. Do you think that this employee that works for you has comported himself with the highest level of ethics and morality and character, Sandra Doorley? Because the answer is no. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter, have had the old payroll. I could compare it to the new payroll and see how he delivered raises. But I will write a Freedom of Information Law and want your payrolls in 6-month periods. Then I'm going to make that determination. You will refuse. That's what I'm going to request in the most respectful way possible of Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli in Albany to audit you and demand your payrolls in 6-month periods, because I believe you'll fleece the taxpayers with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 raises. An employee gets to the point at a sheriff's office, that employee's been there for 25 years, 30 years, where the employee's totally useless. Your employee, when I was at Monroe County Jail the last time, when I went down to the basement, was standing right near the elevator. He's in the vicinity of 70 years of age, which I've said on a previous YouTube. So I looked at that employee before I went into the gym area, and I immediately had the thought, the next time I go to YouTube, or the next time I have the freedom to be on YouTube, I'm going to write a Freedom of Information Law demanding the ages and length of service of Monroe County Sheriff Office boys, and that's what I'm doing right now. Freedom of Information Law, a list of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by 1, length of employment in years, 2, the day, month, and year the employee's hired. I believe this employee's been there for 40 years. You got employees there for 35 years and 30 years. There are employees that can function at a high level. Just because you've been employed for 30 years at any business or any sheriff's office or any institution, the length of time is not an indicator of incompetence. But length of time served leads to incompetence if it's at 25, 30, 35 years. When I arrived in Albany, I was citing my experience for Senate Majority Rock Reno when I was 26 years old. In the first 6 months, there was a man who would come up from the 5th floor. There's 5 floors on the New York State Capitol. And it was really sad, if not heartbreaking. And one of my colleagues knew him. He worked for Governor Nelson A. Rockefeller. And he was kept around because he was known and liked. And at one point, I was told that he was highly effective. And he was known. Well, he was, I believe, easily past 65, and he could have been past 70, just like your employee to jail. And he would come down to our office and pick up the Daily News and the New York Post at the Times New Albany, he'd read it, and I'd see him walking around the Capitol. It really was so sad to see this man who, why wasn't he just trying to enjoy retirement? Well, I don't know. I can't get into somebody's life. But I looked at him and I thought about this foil too. And I thought about your employee at the jail. So, do you have employees who, like this individual I just cited at the New York State Capitol, who've been around for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, and you refuse because you're corrupt? A list of every public employee at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, length of employment in years, day, month, and employees hired. For repeat certain things, corruption requires repetition. It needs to be hammered into your head. And even if it's hammered into your head, what I'm demanding, you still refuse. Freedom of Information Law. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley. I'm going to read the minds of your fellow psychopaths at the Sheriff's Office. Did he just say it needs to be hammered into our heads? I mean, is that a criminal act? Did you hear what he just said to us at Jonestown? He needs to be arrested for using that kind of language. It's exactly what you're thinking. Because you're psychopaths. Freedom of Information Law. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Do you hire employees at the District Attorney's Office from other jurisdictions and bring them in and pay them more money than your employees that have been there for a year, 3 years, 5 years? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. A list of every public employee at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office by length of employment years, day, month, and year the employees hired. Do you have employees at the District Attorney's Office just like the individual I cited at the New York State Capitol 30 years ago when I was a young man? And as I worked in Albany for 10 years, I got one speeding ticket. I called my friend. I said, I got the speeding ticket on Central Avenue in Albany. It's ridiculous. I'm going 5 miles an hour over. I went to court in front of the Capitol. It was dismissed. 2 speeding tickets before Psychopaths Incorporated decided to concoct harassment second and criminal attempt second. I was past 50 years of age. Why do you think that's the case, Sandra Doorley and Todd Baxter? I have 2 speeding tickets leading up to my 50th birthday on July 4, 2015. And yet I've been in jail 6 times since that day? Because Psychopaths Incorporated are concocting charges for me. Because you exist in fiction and lies. Overtime is abused in every large public institution in the United States of America. Are you abusing overtime? Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. Total cost of overtime, a time and a half, while paid beyond a base salary is calculated at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, while paid beyond a base salary is calculated at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Are you, Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley, paid overtime? You, Todd Baxter, paid $132,000. You, Sandra Doorley, paid $203,000. Are you each paid overtime? That could possibly be a scandal if you're paid overtime. And that could possibly be something when I contact Thomas P. DiNapoli, if he uncovers that could remove you from office. Overtime when your salary is set in statute, and the amount of overtime, I don't know. If, one, you're collecting overtime, possibly you could survive if it's not a lot of money. If you're fleecing taxpayers with overtime, $30,000, $40,000, beyond your salary set in statute, I don't believe you'd be able to survive in office. Sick days. There are times when the employee is legitimately sick, and there are times where the employee doesn't want to go into work, picks up the phone, and lies. Are your employees picking up the phone and lying about not being able to come into work by claiming a sickness or an illness? What's the answer? Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of Information Law. The total number of, quote, sick days, end quote, and total number of hours employees at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, have accumulated by 1, the number of sick days, the number of hours. Freedom of Information Law. Total number of, quote, sick days, end quote, and total number of hours employees at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, have accumulated by 1, the number of sick days, 2, the number of hours. How many times have you, Sandra Doorley, decided not to go into the office at 47 South U in Rochester? You don't have to pick up the phone and call anybody. You're not accountable to anybody on a daily basis. You're only accountable to the voters once every 4 years. So you do what you want. That's the way it should be. If you're asked by an auditor at the controller's office, or even a reporter or member of the media in Monroe County, what I'm demanding of you Do you go into the office and do you have sick days? And how many times have you not been able to go into the office? So do you work the standard 40-hour work week, Sandra Doorley? How many times have you not been able to go into the office? And are you working 15 hours and 20 hours a week? What's life going to be like for you if you can't even summon the energy to go into the office, forget 40 hours, forget 20 hours? What's life going to be like you if your entire pathetic, revolting existence is from home? Freedom of Information Law. The total number of sick days, the total number of hours that Supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court, has accumulated by the number of sick days, the number of hours. He's going to look at this and think, this citizen is insane. Why is he demanding this of me? When it's not. $209,000 he's paid. This is why he's corrupt. A reason. He will refuse. I know, there's no doubt about it. Just like you're going to refuse. I'm not under a delusion he can apply with enemies. Even if you're told that you have to comply by Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli or employees that work at the United States Department of Justice for Attorney General Merrick Garland, employees work for Governor Kathy, you'll still refuse. Just like these two hacks. Total number of sick days and total number of hours employees at Pemberton Town Court and Pemberton, New York, 1 have accumulated the number of sick days and number of hours. They're in the vicinity of 70 years old, as Paul C. Metzer and it's James Pimoni Jr. I'm laughing because these two hacks, as I already cited, are in there in that little room where they are in the vicinity of 70 years old, like the widow Metzler. And you get to a point where there is a deterioration of the brain, the ability to function and make decisions at a certain age. They've arrived at that point. Paul C. Metzer and James Pimoni Jr. And that's why everybody's guilty in Pemberton Town Court, because it takes thought and morality and ethics to acquit and understand the Monroe County Sheriff's Office is a collection of fanatics. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter suspended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's the answer. I'm looking to see if I already read that, because I'm concerned that perhaps I already did. And I don't think I have. So I've demanded that over and over. What's the status of sexual harassment at the Sheriff's Office? This is the most important consequential law of the 20th century. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, a monumental struggle because of what segregation is in the United States Senate, like Strom Thurmond were doing with the filibuster. So, is there sexual harassment at the Sheriff's Office? Is there sexual harassment at the District Attorney's Office? Cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars on employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Michelle Crowley, Director of Grand Jury, you know the answer. This is what I'm going to tell the Commission on Correction in Albany about you to investigate you about the status of violence in Monroe County Jail. Freedom of Information Law. A number of criminal acts or criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge where the criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 22 to December 12, 2022, which is today. There's an inmate in Monroe County Jail. And then that inmate assaults another inmate, assaults a jail employee. That's a serious matter when they're already in jail and committing violent crimes in jail. Do you, Todd Baxter, fail to report violence at Monroe County Jail, whether it's inmate on inmate violence, employee on inmate violence, inmate on employee violence? And the answer is yes, you do. You do not report violent criminal acts at Monroe County Jail to the District Attorney's Office or anywhere else. Do you know why? Because that will certify that you don't have control of your jail. That's why. What do you think about what I just said? When I send it to your office with the transcript, this is what we're going to highlight. There are things when I contact the United States Department of Justice that I'll highlight. I believe there's violence at Monroe County Jail, especially by Monroe County Jail employees upon inmates, that you don't report because of the blue wall of silence. I'm going to write this complaint about you, Sandra Doorley, and if you can eject yourself from fanaticism and corruption, when you disclose the names of my prosecutor's silence, this is who I'm going to contact. Freedom of Information Law. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys, employees at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, with the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. This 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee is on East Avenue, and I'm thinking about even walking over there and trying to talk to someone about what I can do. But I'm going to contact these individuals. But first, I have to receive the names of the prosecutors assigned to my concocted criminal charges and my court appearances, and you're refusing. What is the basic membership requirement for employees at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office for Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? My Uncle Tom was a New York City police officer for 27 years. And I'd go see him on Staten Island when I was a young man, when I was going to SUNY Stony Brook. And working on Staten Island, he worked in a precinct. It was called the 123. I heard him say over and over. And he would tell me about his day. He's not facing any violence. And he started his career in Brooklyn, in really one of the worst parts of Brooklyn, right near Bedford-Stuyvesant. I don't know the year. I remember him saying I was right near Bedford-Stuyvesant. I don't know if he was in Bed-Stuy, but it was close to it. So for his first 2 years, his rookie year and his second year, he was telling me about what he saw in Brooklyn. This is in 1962 and 1963. And this is before the Knapp Commission in New York City, which is famous for Frank Serpico disclosing how the employees of the New York City Police Department were committing criminal acts. And your employees, the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, commit criminal acts, Todd Baxter. I explained to you over and over and over. So I remember my uncle telling me about certain guys in the New York City Police Department. They couldn't even fire their weapons. And he would also tell me, he told me a story. I don't want to sound like I'm engaging in narcissism anymore, where this is the corruption of the police. 2 individuals he knew were partnered, and one individual hurt himself at his home, New York City police officer. Both of these New York City Police Department employees went out on the job. And the man who hurt himself at his home told his partner, say I was hurt on the job so I could get workman's compensation and disability. And that's exactly what his partner did, because he lied. This is the corruption of the police. The corruption of the police is everywhere in the United States of America, going back 50 plus years, as the Knapp Commission uncovered. So Todd Baxter, as a belabor this point, my uncle also told me, when I would sit down and he would tell me about the New York City Police Department, his exact words and language that I've used on here, because I would think about him. He would say that weapon should be taken away from him. He would talk about certain employees at the New York City Police Department that he served for 27 years. He shouldn't even have a weapon. It were a joke. So Todd Baxter, do you have employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office who shouldn't even have a weapon, who are a joke? Freedom of Information Law. What is the basic membership requirement for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? This is the cost of fanaticism. Todd Baxter. I don't know if I'll be able to see this on my phone because I have to put the code in and I don't want to take up time, but that's the parking lot right there. And I'm looking for, what do you think I'm looking for, Todd Baxter? And here's your fellow psychopaths driving by where I used to live, which they used to do all the time. They would drive over to my residence and be right outside my residence. There's one of them. That's not an accident. Why do you think I have that photo when you can clearly see your employee? This is after I read your salaries. I think this was in a week. After I read your salaries for the first time, there he is right outside my window. That's why I call you Psychopaths Incorporated, Todd Baxter. So, and here's another picture. This is a different photograph of your employee. I don't know if you can see that with the glare. Again, outside my residence, Psychopaths Incorporated. I read the payroll. You're coming over to my residence, sitting in front of my residence in your vehicles, and here it is right here. That's it. I don't know if you can see it with the glare. I'm going to try to hold it up. That's surveillance bites. Todd Baxter. Did you buy it and affix it for me with taxpayer dollars at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Or is this private technology for this business at 2025 Penfield Road? That's it right there. I'm trying to hold it where the glare on the phone will not obscure the view of the what? What did you buy from me, Todd Baxter? Because I've already seen the images. What did you buy? What's it called, Todd Baxter? Freedom of Information Law. The cost of the surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and affixed to a building in 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building, and that's the lunatic fringe. This is in the documents you're going to sign for tomorrow and you receive that I just showed. You can see it. I don't know if you can see it because I'm holding this up on this Google product that is YouTube, but you can see it when you look at it. I don't know if you can see it when I hold it up, but I just showed it to you. And you're calling Renzi Barron of the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to my residence? This freak knocked on my door with a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee, Renzi Barron. She's walking around in my residence asking me questions about how I live my life because you, Todd Baxter, you fucking freak, called the Monroe County Office of Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to my residence. I have to control myself sometimes when I think about Renzi Barron coming to my residence because your office called her because I'm using a phrase surveillance device that you bought. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of photography session approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to photograph 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool. I've been demanding this for 18 months. I don't care if it's a private event. I don't give a shit that it's a private event. Is this taxpayer dollars, you skinhead? Junkets and raised taxpayers. This is Monroe County Sheriff Office employee Ryan Fisher on a junket. I would cite his salary, but I own nothing. I have nothing because of you, and that includes the payroll. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend a Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. Here he is. A disgrace, an abomination for him to be in Atlanta, Georgia when there's real violence raining down the city of Rochester. I'm not going to read this tweet again. Here he is. You're tweeting about it. You want people to know what is wrong with you with that sheriff's office. That's the flag of the state of New York. I explained this previously. And here he is in Stars and Bars, Georgia, where this hate symbol was not changed until 2003. You go into the media. You pick up the phone and talk about him going to Atlanta, Georgia, because that's in this story. There's any number of ways a reporter or a journalist decides to write a story or go on the air. And oftentimes, it's people want to be covered in, for example, the sheriff's office. Did Ryan Fisher contact, in this case, Spectrum News and say, I'm going to the Super Bowl with my dog, and perhaps that could be a story of somebody else at the sheriff's office? Your PR people, $0 Michael Radler? Is that your job? You're the official spokesman, right? Are you calling Spectrum News, Michael Radler, about Ryan Fisher and other employees to promote Jonestown? Freedom of Information Law. The documentation of voucher or other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase an airline ticket and a hotel room from Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to travel to Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. An absolute disgrace. How's that explained to Thomas P. DiNapoli? Are you going to tell Thomas P. DiNapoli, the control of New York, that you won't even disclose a hotel room price, an airline ticket price for your employee to be in Atlanta, Georgia? The answer is yes. Because you're corrupt, because you're a psychopath, because you fleece the taxpayers. Cost for the care and feeding Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd dog Lola during his trip to Atlanta, Georgia, on February 3rd, 2019. Was there a per diem for him? Was there walking around money? You were grossly overweight at that Monroe County Sheriff's Office. 75% of your employees could not pass even the most basic physical fitness test. Do you have a physical fitness test? The answer is no. What are the physical training standards and requirements at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? And if there is a standard requirement, does it include running, push-ups, and sit-ups? As I said previously, if you took every single one of your employees to a track anywhere in Monroe County and said, run around this track twice and don't stop, 75% of them wouldn't be able to do it, including you, Todd Baxter. Freedom of Information Law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to every arrest for the accountability, facts, and circumstances of the arrest? I'm going to say this again for you party-switching skinhead. This is the first time I wrote this because of what I said previously. I'm violently attacked at Wegmans, 5 vehicles, 10-plus employees with your female employee with the Marine-style haircut and tattoos who watch this happen to me. If you have an arresting officer, that arresting officer is accountable for facts and circumstances. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to every arrest for the accountability, facts, and circumstances of an arrest? The answer is no. The name and charge of every inmate in Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 1, 2018 to December 12, 2022. You do not separate your violent inmates from your non-violent inmates. I'm walking around there with the murderers, the rapists, the arsonists, the most violent individuals in Monroe County, and I'm an innocent man. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on race or gender? As you're a Democrat, you have to appeal to the base of the Democratic Party in affirmative action. So what's the answer? You, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, hire employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender. As you're a Democrat, you have to appeal to the base of the Democratic Party, which is obsessed with race and gender. Give me these names, Sandra Doorley. Send me these names, too. 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14614. This is the first one here. Is this Julie Hahn? I don't know because I don't know the names of any of my prosecutors. Because you exist in that silence of stone cold corruption, Sandra Doorley. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for John Pimentel Jr. Penn Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? If this is Julie Hahn, I will be contacting her, I hope in the next week to 14 days. I'll ask her directly. And I'm going to send her everything I'm doing to you. And I'm going to be banning information from her, too. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for Paul C. Metzer, Penn Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? This is the employee at your district attorney's office. Regina Harper said to me, quote, the prosecutor's not backing down, end quote. When he doesn't know anything. He exists in complete, total ignorance about every single one of my concoctions. This is a de facto employee of the sheriff's office, this three-piece suit boy. And what's his name? Sandra Doorley. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester, New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? I'll have to write this again because I'm going to be in court again because there's going to be more fiction and more lies and more concoctions for you. I'm going to be in front of this $208,000 hack again. Well, I'm going to tell him he's a $208,000 hack. I'm going to ask him again if he's an alcoholic because I don't conform to the normal expected behavior in court. So when am I going to be in court again, Sandra Doorley? When am I going to be in front of $208,000 hack Alex Renzi without a jury of 12, without a witness stand for witness testimony, without a table for a prosecutor, without a table for a defense attorney? A list of defendants in Penn Court for Paul C. Metzer. Do you not understand this language, you $28,000 skinhead widow? A list of defendants in Penn Court for James Doorley Jr. Do you not understand this language? How old are you? You're about 70, right? And you're releasing Jermaine Bettman? How do you explain that to the United States House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary, which my former boss, Congressman Mark Smith, used to be a chairman of, and the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary, James Doorley Jr., because I'll contact these committees about you. A list of defendants in Penn Court for John Pimentel Jr. and a list of defendants in New York State Supreme Court before supervising Judge Alex Renzi and his $208,000 salary. This is Daniel Glaus III. You should know his name immediately. Quote, the defective documents, end quote, cited by John Pimentel Jr. in the Democratic Chronicle newspaper about the case of Daniel Glaus III. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Todd K. Baxter. How do you expect to survive scrutiny by the New York State Controller and the media if your employees, if time after time after time, are sending employees out of Monroe County on junkets? Same thing with you, Sandra Doorley. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, Attorney Sandra Doorley. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Penn Court, Paul C. Metzer, James Doorley Jr., and John P. Lanza Jr. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County by supervising Judge, New York State Supreme Court, Alex R. Renzi. This is you, Todd Baxter, Watkins Glen. Send me the documentation for you being on that junket. The cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Did Monroe County Sheriff's Office expend taxpayer dollars for a hotel, plane ticket, or per diem? Total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd K. Baxter was trip to Watkins Glen. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended in Saratoga Springs, New York, the District Attorneys Association State of New York Summer Conference. The cost of taxpayers to Saratoga Springs, New York, if Sheriff Todd K. Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars to extend the Undersheriff's Training Conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York. Over and over and over, I'm demanding this information. This is from my Proton Mail account on November 28, 2022. I'd say about 85% of them I demanded here before I was on YouTube. So, you have it. Send this information I'm demanding. I'm not asking. 2. 620 Park Avenue, PNB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. Perhaps you can wait there, Psychopaths Incorporated, the sheriff's office, for me to show up and check my box. You can arrest me right there. What's going to be the next concocted charge? What's going to be the next fiction? What's going to be the next lie for me? I really want to see it. I'm not trying to engage in any hyperbole. I really want to see what the next lie is from you, Sandra Doorley. So, over and over and over, you're getting this. And you didn't get this, what I just read, Alex Renzi, because for some reason the post office at 99 Exchange cannot send that to me. So, this is a blank Freedom of Information law. I'm going to use this document upon you relentlessly. I'm going to be demanding new information in the next week to 14 days. There's 50 Freedom of Information documents attached. I hope that happens up to 60 in the next week to 10 days. And you refuse to comply every single time with information I'm demanding from you, including my prosecutor's silence, where I've been delivered to jail 6 times, and 6 times the prosecutor's not talked in court. How do you explain to the United States Department of Justice, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that I have been in jail 6 times and there's not one syllable uttered in court by any employee of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office? My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man.